What's up, friends? Welcome back to Rooted Wisconsin, where we are dedicated to authentically sharing the stories of the people who drive Wisconsin culture and make this a fantastic place to be. Start our episode off the same way we do every episode by thanking you. Thank you for your likes, shares, subscribes, engaging with our content however you can and do. We appreciate you, make the content for you, and hope you keep coming back. So thank you. As you can see, a little different vibe in the studio today. We are at Ledgestone Vineyard and going to rip a podcast in here and talk about an awesome place to do it. It ended up working out really well. So shout out to them for being super accommodating, and an extra thanks for the extension cord that I didn't have with me that they hooked me up with. So appreciate that. A couple more quick shout outs to get out of the way. Our sponsors at Riverside Pizzeria, one of the best pizzas in Wisconsin. You got to stop in and get it. Get cheese out and get pepperoncinis. And stop in when you're in Ashwaubenon and probably coming to a neighborhood near you. So shout out to Riverside Pizzeria, our friends at Wonder Sign for turning my vehicle into the Rooted Wisconsin mobile, and shout out to our friends at Discover Green Bay for our normal studio space. So now with all of our check boxes out of the way, we're ready to get our episode started. And our guest today, Adam Greuel. Thanks for joining, Adam.
Thanks for having me. Stoked to be doing it.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to chat, and I'm really excited about this little nugget to start the show off, man, because we've been chatting for a few days about coming on the show. So I was doing looking into some stuff about you and trying to find some information. There's a YouTube video with you, an interview of you. And I can't remember who is doing it, but I found out that you and your family make maple syrup.
That's right.
So my family and I do too. We've been
no kidding.
doing it for a long time, man.
It's a labor of love, man.
Dude,
God.
Everybody asks how much money you make. It's like 10 cents an hour.
If that might be generous.
Yeah, dude. But so I'm excited to talk about that. It sounds like we do about half the taps that you do, but there's a really another layer to this where in this interview, I think it was your family's maple syrup that you gave to the dude that interviewed you, and it said Casimir on it.
Yeah.
What does Casimir mean to you?
That's the road I grew up on. So, people think of the Led Zeppelin song, of course, Kashmir, but that's what it said. It said it's Kashmir is what's, that's how that's said. And Kashmir Road is just north of Stevens Point, Wisconsin, on the Wisconsin River.
Okay.
And, it's a special place. It's, we call it Kashmir Gold Maple Syrup, but Kashmir, the road itself, is it's kind of known as being a sort of a special neighborhood. It's on the backwaters of the Wisconsin River. There's this place called Red Bridge. It's right down there. I think Horseshoes' first promo shot was us sitting on Red Bridge because we'd go down there with a bag of wine and bad cigarettes and things like that, and early in college, and just cause mischief and look at the stars, and probably were smoking grass at the time, things like that. So it's got that, but it also has Kashmir Road is a really neat little community. There's a lot of interesting people doing really interesting stuff, like making maple syrup, and there's some people who do these cool welding projects. Right now there's this giant oversized metal buck deer in the middle of this field that somebody welded together. So it's just a special place, and that's where I grew up, and my parents are still out there, and I hang out there quite a bit too. So
sweet.
That's where that comes from.
Sweet. So what intrigued me, and other than, as the next layer of the maple syrup, so my middle name is actually Casimir.
No way.
Yeah.
After the saint?
Yeah. So after my grandpa. My grandpa's name was Casimir, but yes, in general, after the saint,
Yeah, right.
With Polish
a saint
roots.
or a cardinal or something?
So it's Saint.
Or a
I'm pretty
pope?
Saint Casimir, I think, or Kashmir.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know all of the lineage or history behind it, but I just know that anytime I've ever said that to anybody, people look at me cross-eyed and they're like, "What is that word you just said?" And that's the name of your maple syrup company, man.
That's cool that that's your middle name. It's kind of like one of them lost old-timey names.
It is.
That was a really common, Polish name, wasn't it?
From way back in the day.
Yeah, it's kind of gone now, but if I ever decide to have a kid, name that little rugrat Kashmir.
You
Kashmir
could. There you go, man. It's got a nice ring to it. And my grandpa, I never asked him why, and he's gone now. I never asked him why, but everybody called him Casey. So
Oh, yeah.
it's easy to turn into something if
Sure.
the kid doesn't end up liking cashmere. You know?
That's awesome. Crazy.
It is. So that cracked me up, man.
Er-
So I'm assuming that's usually a family lineage thing. You've been making maple syrup a long time.
Yes. Not actually, I suppose in the grand scheme of maple syrup producers, probably not all that long. My dad got into it because some neighbors were into it. And he always had aspirations because our family forest, the family land was plumb full of maples. And he always wanted to do it, but he was busy carting us kids around with sports. And I'm one of three, so they were plenty busy. And yeah. And then they just kind of, one day, I guess he decided, he was post-retirement. I think that's what got him going. So I think we've been at it for, 15 years or something.
Okay.
It's always fun. It's a good thing to do, in that time period known as sprinter. Part winter, part springtime, know? Because it's such a weird time of the year and you kind of got cabin fever. And I honestly like it for the exercise. It gets you mobile and gets you out there and doing cool stuff.
And outdoors is just good for your soul, man. And that's a hard time to get outdoors that time of year.
Absolutely.
You got to really have something you want to do to go slop through the mud and the muck. So
it's cool maple syrup season to watch Wisconsin kind of reawaken.
Yeah.
That's the thing about maple syrup season. It starts, it's that tensionous time period, so it starts and it feels more like winter than spring. And then by the end of it, right when it stops, we're kind of moving full into springtime. So you get to watch the woods kind of transform. You start off, you're like post holing through the snow, to tap the trees and everything. And then by the end of it, you're wearing hip waders to get through the soggy forest,
Yeah.
Our woods gets real wet.
Ours too. Ours too.
You know how that is.
Yeah.
We used to have a dog running around in there. The thing would just be grosser than all hell at the end of the day, Golden retrievers covered in muck.
Oh, man. That's so interesting to think about because I've never thought about it like that. It's so true because the buds mark the end of the season, and that's kind of the mark in the start of spring for
really
everybody
is.
else. And
Totally.
that's wild.
Yep.
Well, that's cool, man. I was excited to chat about that a little bit. It was hilarious when I saw that name on it. So,
everything's connected, right?
yeah, happenstance.
It's cool that your family does it too. Turning sap to syrup, man. You just sit there and watching it boil. You're never supposed to watch water boil. It makes it take longer. Man, do we sit there and watch that sap? Is it gonna go ever?
Yeah. Oh man, I was so thankful when we upgraded. Our current evaporator probably gets like 25 gallons an hour. We had an old flat pan that got like 8 probably. So
Sure.
it's just like, dude, we were batch boiling and it taken forever.
Oh, it's brutal. And then if the sugar content's low,
Oh yeah.
just sit there going all night and might get a draw, might not.
Yeah. Well, I also want to talk about a lot of our discussions on Rooted Wisconsin are kind of like about life trajectories and the story behind the people, Obviously, music is central to your life.
Oh, yeah.
What got you into it, man? How'd you start?
Early on when I was pretty young, I always enjoyed music. Mostly, I went to the Catholic church, that's where a lot of people experience music for the first time. Just always felt that kind of power of music, and then we started going to like things like the Valley Fair, and Wisconsin Valley Fair. And I remember one particular moment as being sort of pivotal in leading me into a deeper interest in music, and that was going to the fair in Marshfield, Wisconsin. I don't know what that's called. It might be like the Central Wisconsin Fair or something. I'm not sure. And Nitty Gritty Dirt Band was playing. And, of course, I loved Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, mostly at the time, probably just because of Fishing in the Dark, I would guess. But we went there as a family, and they had like an afternoon show, say maybe 3 o'clock or something. They had like a 7 o'clock show. So they did the 3 o'clock show, and we went. And they crushed it, and I was just mesmerized, just really adored it. And after, they were signing autographs, and we were standing in line, I bought, like, one of those little old school, like a photo of the band, and they would sign it, and the line was quite long, and too long, and they decided that they wouldn't be able to sign autographs for everybody, and they hung it up. They said, "I'm sorry, we can't do this," and started walking back. We got to get ready for the next show. Well, I was really young. Like, I don't know if I was 6, 5, 6, somewhere in there. And I started crying, bawling my eyes out, And this guy, Jimmy Ibbotson is his name. Ibby, they call him for short. He, jumped this fence. He saw me crying, and he asked my mom, "Hey, can I just take him backstage and introduce him to the other guys quick?" And my mom's like, sure. So I went with this guy, Ibby, backstage. He took me and, introduced me to each person, and everybody signed the thing. He showed me their little tour bus, and he took me back to my mom. It was like the coolest thing ever, for a young kid, especially that type of wave of emotions. You're so sad, and then you're so elated to have got such a unique experience. And, we stayed for that nighttime show, and I believe, my parents would remember this better than I. This is like right at that beginning point of having memory, really, But I think I went back and I asked, to perhaps try to start playing guitar. And I think for Christmas they got me like a half-size guitar or whatever, and I just took to it right away. And it's just, music is one of them things that's kind of in you for some people. It's always been in me. I've always felt it. I've always known it. Like, it just sort of innate to who I was, even like when I was super young. I just felt it.
Yeah.
And then tried to do lessons. I didn't like lessons. That was not my thing. Forced guitar playing, I didn't like any of that. And I stayed in it for a little bit, and then it became time for me to do some kind of recital. And my mom's like, "Hey, you got a recital in a week and a half over at the library." And I'm like, "I'm quitting. I'm not doing it." She's like, "Really? You don't want to play guitar anymore?" I'm like, "No, I want to play guitar. I just don't want to do lessons." She just thought, of course, thought that was the end of it. Well, then, apparently I came home from the library like a day later with all these books about how to play. And I learned out of the books, and then, like, internet tabs and, internet sites and things like that. That was kind of right when the internet became more accessible, and that was that. Just, one thing led to another from between there and here, I suppose,
Yeah. So then how does the band get started? So I'm assuming you learn how to play well.
So then once I started to really fall in love with it, there was a couple significant events, like me ended up going to my brother's college and getting to sit in with this band called the Smokin' Bandits, who had risen to prominence. He kind of was friends with them and arranged for me to sit in. I think it was 13 then or something.
Feeling cool as hell.
It's super cool, man. There's a photo of it, actually. I still have. But and then I started, joining these already established bands around central Wisconsin that were super kind. There's a band called Loose Strings, and I'd play with like Sloppy Joe and Art Stevenson at High Water sometimes. And my parents were really cool. I was the third kid, so they were more protective of the first and the second. The third one, they're like, "Whatever, he's probably fine." So I got to go do some festivals and things like that. And then I was big into football, playing football. I really loved it, high school and stuff. And long story short, I got to college and didn't like the vibe of college football. It's just so like, I don't know, it was like real, like that was what your life was going to be, you were going to go to college and you were going to be a football playing person. Mm-hmm. You were going to work out with these people. You were going to practice with them. You were going to hang with them after. That was going to be your life. And that's awesome, for some people. But for me, I knew it wasn't what I wanted. Like, I wanted to go and experience a lot of different types of people. And so I quit almost immediately. And that same day, I met Sam, a Horseshoes bass player, who had like just met the other guys. And, one thing led to another. The origins of Horseshoes and Hand Grenades are very confusing. Nobody's can quite recall exactly how it worked, but it was just a lot of picking and hanging and, around friends and college parties. And next thing we knew, we were, running a full-time band and in school and had all their jobs. And life got pretty weird there because by the time we graduated college, we were already touring nationally. So it was like pretty bizarre, it was a strange thing. Thankfully, like I had professors that would let me take finals from the road on the way to a festival and things like that. Otherwise it would have been hard, but we all graduated.
Yeah.
And then, we just, remained a band and started touring the country really hard. I mean, we were doing like 200, more than 200 shows in a year for a couple of years. And that was pretty intense.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. The long, strange trip adage is definitely true.
Oh, dude. And it was a long, strange trip. I could tell you story after story of those years because, when people think about bands touring, they think of like a tour bus, or maybe some real nice decked out vehicle. We were in, at first, Dave's parents' soccer mom van, 5 dudes and all of our equipment.
Yeah.
That was definitely a dumpster fire. And then we got one of them airport, like, hangar buses, kind of like the smaller bus looking thing, like Chevy Duramax diesel. It's like, I don't know, 30 foot or something. And we decked that out with 6 bunks. Actually, Colin, who just walked by, Colin and his dad, like, retrofitted this bus so we could have 6 bunks and a little lobby up front. There was no bathroom or anything. But that's how we did most of our hard touring, was in this little blue bus, man. You had your bunk, that was your private space, and it's pretty far out.
That's when, like you spoke earlier of the music being inside of you, that's when it has to be.
Yes.
It has to come out, because that's when so many people quit, dude.
Well, it's a total for the love of the game vibe. You're spot on. Because it wasn't particularly glamorous. I mean, we were playing awesome festivals. I mean, gosh, we played, at our peak of probably our hardest touring year, we supported somebody at Red Rocks, and we got to do Telluride Bluegrass Festival, Dell Fest in Maryland, Swanee Spring Fest in Florida. I mean, just all the festivals that I grew up wanting to play, we were able to play, and it was really a cool time period. But ultimately, you reach a unique point as a band where you have to decide what type of life you ultimately want to be living. And for like a couple of the guys in the band, there definitely started to be this question mark of like, if we are going to be a hard touring band like this, what does this mean for partnership? What does this mean for family life? Can I have kids? Can I be a father in this context? Is this a healthy, sustainable thing? Can I be on the road like this and have a sense of self-control, not party every night? Those questions became really real, and for some of us, the answer was, I don't want to be on the road as hard. So that's when Horseshoes kind of reassessed, and it was really important for us to remain a band. You look at bands like the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band or the Grateful Dead, and there's a number of other bands that are north of 50 years together. And how did they do that? They did that by having a degree of flexibility and understanding for one another.
Empathy
to then be able to remain a unit that has more of a amorphous trajectory. Maybe we don't push to have this sort of idea of exponential growth across the country, and maybe we just be content playing, a network of cities throughout the Midwest and maybe Colorado. You change the way you look at it, right? And so a couple of the other guys took on other jobs and ended up having kids too and got married, things like that, stuff that they wanted to do with their lives. And I wasn't ready for either one of them yet, kids or marriage. And so I ended up finding a bunch of other different projects to kind of occupy my time. And that's the world that I'm in, now. Still doing horseshoe stuff, but also taking on other projects.
Yeah, because I mean, you did an album with Charlie.
Yeah.
And then you have is it you Adam Greuel and the Space Burritos?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Rucksack Revolution with Sarah Voss from Dead Horses.
Okay.
And then a band called the High Hawks too, which is a band with some of my heroes, honestly, from the music industry throughout the years. So
yeah, it's
been cool, and that all developed to be entirely honest with you, I probably haven't spoke about this, in a public way, but there was definitely an identity crisis that occurred, when you do something like Horseshoes was doing for so long, for so many years, and it's the centerpiece of your life. When you decide that it's not going to be the centerpiece of your life anymore, or when it can't be, for reasons outside of your control, man, it hit me kind of who am I? What am I doing here? Became a big part of who I was playing guitar and singing in Horseshoes. And it was a moment of real high anxiety, probably some depression in there, and trying to sort out what's next, not knowing how to proceed, I just worried about having to rebuild an entity. Horseshoes took a lot of time and energy to get to where it was, and so I was real worried about that.
And as big as you got, it's like striking gold. Can I do it again?
Yes, exactly. And just being aware of the work, that goes into it. So, there was a woe is me time period. And then there was a moment where I'm you know what? I just need to do it. I just need to go forward and throw some things out there and see what sticks. And lo and behold, every single thing I threw some energy at ended up being a real thing that worked, and it was the stuff with Charlie was, I can't even begin to tell you how important that was for my life and for my sense of artistic confidence, because we got together, just hit it off basically, and he had a big interest in music and I had a big interest in comedy, and we had both, I had dabbled in comedy things and he had dabbled in music. And so once we realized we had a good natural chemistry as buddies, we sort of set out where he would teach me comedy and I would teach him music. And then that's what kind of led to our friendship and our collaboration. Of course, now we dropped 2 albums, and I do a lot of his tour dates I do with him now too. And so that's been pretty magical.
Yeah, actually, you must have done a spot with him in Madison. A real good friend of mine lives in Madison, and when I told him you were going to be on the podcast, he was pumped up.
That's awesome.
From the show.
Nice.
That's when he got introduced to your stuff.
Nice. So. Yeah, so we did these albums that were kind of comedy music, and then now I kick off his show with stand up too. It's super hard, man. Talk about feeling naked on stage. You don't have your guitar to hide behind.
Mm-hmm. I've talked about that on the podcast, man. So in one way or another, similar, I've pretty much made a living out of talking and speaking.
Sure.
And I love stand-up comedy. And it is the most intimidating thing that I could ever think of. So I've never tried it, but there's something inside of me that says this is hard, you should do it.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, you should. I mean, it's a neat process, neat experience. At first, I found it somewhat uncomfortable to do. just because, you really need that feedback, In music, the song ends and people clap. In comedy, it's like a constant feedback loop where you've got to keep people engaged with if 3 sentences go by and people lose engagement, it gets a little weird. So Charlie's really helped me with that. I mean, to get to learn from somebody like him is pretty awesome,
For sure.
'cause he's so naturally talented at it. And so that's been a great experience. There's been that, and then also doing stuff with Sarah Voss, who's one of my favorite songwriters in the entire world. She's been incredible. We've got a duo thing, and then the Space Burritos thing, that came from wanting to play with these individuals all around the Midwest, these cats, and not really knowing how to go about it. And I wanted to play country, rock and roll type stuff too. And so I wrangled these guys together, and that's been really fun and epic. And yeah. And then the other thing I did was, because I wasn't sure if any of this stuff would work, I also sort of started this idea to be a fly fishing guide, in case the music stuff kind of came to a halt and I wasn't getting enough work there. Thought maybe I'd do some guiding. So that's been a trip too,
And you're still doing it?
I will do a couple trips. Not, I'm so busy right now with music where it hasn't panned out to do too much, but 5 to 10 trips a season, I guess.
Nice.
It's fun, man. Fly fishing, it's good for the soul,
It is. So I think there's a discussion there, right? I'm so glad the life stuff came up of a band, because so I play music too. I started playing guitar later than you, when I was 12 or 14. But as little self-reflection as I had done in my life, there was one thing I knew, and that I wouldn't be able to sustain a life on the road that wouldn't fit me and who I was and what I wanted. So I never pursued it. But I played a lot, still play a lot. I was knocking out fishing in the dark with my 3-year-old a couple days ago. So it's funny that came up.
Nice.
But I knew that wouldn't be me. So I never pursued anything like that. But fishing, hunting, the outdoors is me. And it's interesting to me. Obviously, the road hasn't beaten you down yet. You're still chasing it down.
It hasn't.
Okay.
It's a moving target. Your well-being on the road. This time of the year, we're recording this in August, and I always start to feel pretty wore out. You go through the summer doing tons and tons of shows, and I find, probably have too many late nights, things like that, and I start needing that afternoon nap, man. Yeah, I took one earlier, and it just depends on the way you are too. I've always had a propensity to party. I love slamming back beers and hanging out with buddies, and sometimes it's hard to stop jaw jacking at the end of the night. You drink a couple too many, and so you start having to pay attention to that. What am I? Aside from the raw elements of constant movement, and, sleeping not in your own bed, and humans are really good at having a routine. They get a little weird if there's not a routine, and that's in the summer especially, I can't have a routine at all. So there's that, but then there's, the little choices you make, how much do you party, how late do you stay up, all those types of things, and you certainly get better at knowing yourself, and knowing how to deal with all that.
Yeah. And I think, so the next part of the discussion is that your next go-to was being a fly fishing guide, whereas kind of the anti what you do, it's
I'll tell you, that's not by coincidence. There's no doubt about that.
Sure.
I think fly fishing, so, aside from guiding, I fly fish as much as I can. Because I think, obviously there's a sense of serenity there, and there's, some people call it the zen of fly fishing. I don't know if it's necessarily as much zen as it is fly fishing requires your constant attention. If you're not thinking about what you're doing there in the river, you know, shit happens. You end up tripping and falling in the river, or you know, get a fly stuck in the tree, things, you know, stuff like that. So it requires your constant focus, which is great for somebody who's got an overactive, busy mind, you know, concerned about this and that, all these future thoughts, you know. You know how that is. Some mornings you wake up and it's like damn near impossible to be truly present. Just because you find yourself worrying, like even through this conversation we're having right now, every once in a while I feel my mind wandering to concern about the night ahead, you know. Like we have a 2-set show here at, you know, we're playing at Ledgestone Vineyards in Greenleaf tonight, and you start thinking about that and it removes you from the moment, you know. It's really a hard thing. Like, that's almost like one of the biggest chores as a human is figuring out how to be present, you know? And fly fishing's great for that. It's a great little lesson, you know?
Yeah, that's so true, man. I put a huge intention on that. Probably, I don't know, within the last year or so, I've started like this, you can call it like a manifestation journal or like whatever. Like I write the things that I care about every morning when I wake up. And there's like 4 things that I repeat. And like as much thought and attention and like energy that I put into that, like I'll catch myself like 5 minutes into a conversation with my 3-year-old and I'll be like, wait a second, I'm not paying attention to what he's saying.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
I'm thinking about like some other stuff I've got to do, and like every time I'm like, damn it.
It's bizarre how hard that is, man. No, I can relate. You know about the morning pages? Have you ever read a book called The Artist's Way?
No.
There's this great book called The Artist's Way. I forget the author. But in there is this concept of morning pages. You basically write like 3 loose leaf pages of like whatever your thoughts are, right, when you wake up. And it like kind of cleanses your palate. You know, it's almost like taking a run or something, the way that kind of like resets you. So for a long time, I was doing that every morning, writing those 3 pages. And it might just be stuff like, you know, gosh, it's been a great week. It's so nice that it's finally cool. You know, I was stressed out about this and this, but I'm sure damn grateful to be alive. You know, it's just you rambling, you know, and sometimes it's real heavy, you know. Like, I've definitely found myself like, I'm tearing this up so nobody ever reads it right after, you know. And I found that helped a lot. But, you know, another big one for me, like, for my mental health is I'm a bigger guy, but I run. I wake up and run, dude. That just, like, rounds life's edges so damn well. And
Yeah, any kind of physical activity, man. So for years and years, similar to you, I loved football in high school, left that behind, and my hobby was basketball. Like, loved playing basketball a lot. Like a year and a half ago now, hurt my ankle, couldn't do it anymore. So, of course, like a classic, like, stubborn person, I just didn't go to the hospital, didn't go to the doctor, whatever.
It just lingered.
Yep, and it's still going, so I can't hoop anymore. So
really?
Yeah. So
just from a twisted ankle.
Yeah, I'm guessing it was more, but whatever.
Like a small fracture or something.
Something, yeah. I can't, like, bend it this way well anymore. But moral of the story is, for a while, I was just kind of low for bread, dude. Like, I didn't do anything, you know? Like, I have my job, my other job is sedentary. You know, I don't move around much.
Start feeling it in the mind a little.
Yeah, dude. Never had that in my entire life, because my entire life I had played sports and been active. And I got into this spot where I didn't recognize it immediately. A couple months in, I was like, I had this revelation day where I was like, what's going on here? Like, I felt like garbage. My life didn't feel good. I wasn't treating the people around me how I wanted to, or, you know, was. And I was like, dude, so now, I always used to joke, like, after I quit playing football, that I'm never going to lift weights again. Now I lift.
Doing it again.
Yeah. And,
I know. And the more that time goes by and the more I mess with this stuff and experiment with it, the more I'm, like, sold that your mental health is mostly attached to what you're doing with your body, what you're consuming, and the degree to which you're being physical. Like, there was a time where I was like, I'm anxious because this and this and this and this are going on in my life, or I'm depressed and there's like some truth to that. Obviously, like if there's all these life stressors, like that's going to affect you. But I'll tell you what, man, like I can be having the weirdest, most terrible week ever. And if I go and take a run, it doesn't feel like that anymore. I mean, it's just like it almost trumps the whole, like your life imbalances, the life, issues going on by just going and taking care of yourself. Or hiking, waking up and just walking for a mile or 2 or 3, that really helps too. But for me, getting that heart rate cooking really helps,
Yeah.
But it's wild, isn't it, to have that type of realization? But we're like we're hunters and gatherers. Like that was our deal. Like we're not supposed to be sitting around our damn iPhones. Like
yeah.
it makes sense
It does
when you muse on it.
It does. And the proof is in the pudding at the immediacy of it. It happens immediately. Like it's not like it takes, a month to work.
No.
It's like after you're done, you feel excellent.
First day.
Yeah.
I know, man. I'm like, I've felt like that's just been such a gift recently in my life, is remembering that, the importance of that. And, you can start small. You don't have to go run on the treadmill for 3 miles. Like all you got to do is like get up and take a walk around the damn neighborhood.
Yep.
And it really makes, you wonder, like, would the world be a little less angry if everybody moved a little more?
I think so.
know?
I think so. There's a couple other tricks that people can take into consideration too. But definitely moving is one of them.
No more elections.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that too, man. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's just America's getting a little wily right now for sure.
Yeah, a little weird around the edges,
Dude,
man.
Totally.
So, what you like? What do you go at? You like browns, brookies? What do you go after?
Oh man, I will fly fish for any species, not just trout.
Okay.
Fly fish for muskie and pike and smallmouth and largemouth and panfish and brookies and browns and bows and salmon. I like it all. To me, it's just that I enjoy fishing on the fly more than anything else. Growing up, I did both, and even I think it was maybe 10 years ago or something, I sort of stopped fishing conventional gear and just mostly did fly stuff. I don't really know why that is, except for I enjoy the act of casting a fly. That's really a fun thing to do, and so I chase them all, man, and I have a lot of fun with just about all of them.
Nice.
It used to be. It was thought that, fly fishing was for trout and like panfish, Wouldn't you say that was kind of always like the way that people thought of it?
I think
Maybe
so,
some
yeah.
Salmon.
Especially trout, yeah.
Yeah, the river runs through it kind of vibe.
And there's been that thing forever, like people are saying, you want to get into fly fishing? Go for bluegills first.
Yes. Yeah, and I did that. Absolutely did that and had a heck of a lot of fun with it. But somewhere in there, some friends of mine, started showing me that you could go for bass and pike, and God, I fell in love with that. And Wisconsin's such a metropolis of all these different species. Growing up right behind my house, in spring you'd walk out in the backwaters, see these boiling things. If you didn't know better, you'd think they were like geysers about to erupt. Those were spawning carp.
Yep.
And we always thought carp were kind of gross growing up, and now fly fishing for carp is like a serious thing. People love doing it. Horseshoes banjo player Russ is like obsessed with it.
Really?
Yeah, you hook onto them, man, and they're like a freight train, like school buses.
They're humongous, yeah.
Just awesome, fun fight. So it's really changed the people's love of fly fishing. I was just talking about you, Russ.
This is Russ?
Yeah, this is Russ here. He's the guy who likes fly fishing for carp.
Nice.
Why do you like the fly fishing for carp so much, Russ?
Yep.
I like the fly fishing for carp because they are, I mean, they're really smart and really dumb at the same time. It's a fish of opportunity.
I think my wife says the same thing about me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's kind of one of those fun things because you can go see like 100,000 carp in a day, but like only 5 of them are like, they're going to do it. The rest of them are just like doing something else or hanging out. You can cast at them.
Okay.
Whatever, it's fine. But like only 5 of them are going to do it. And they're really going to do it, which is really, the really exciting part because you got to look at a lot of fish. You get to see a lot of fish when you're sight fishing for carp usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dig it. Nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, Russell Peterson.
Yes, thank you.
Sick cameo. That's sweet, man. Yeah. So we were talking before we jumped on and started. We were talking about my buddy Seth, who I've known for a long time from Dark Waters Fly Shop. Shout out Seth. And he always used to try to get me to start fly fishing because he would come out. I'll never forget. Like he's the same way. We would go out in my boat. I'd be spinner fishing, and he'd have his fly rod with him. And he always told me his main selling point was I love bow hunting, and he's like it's the bow hunting of fishing, and that at that time it didn't like resonate with me because there was a lake close to where we lived that I could just crush huge smallies. Anytime I had to go fishing, I would just go do that.
Nice.
Nice.
And with classic like wacky rigs or jigging trailers and stuff.
Sure.
But now it's funny. I moved back, and now I live in Green Bay, where I still have access to awesome smallie fishing, but I sold my boat. So then I started thinking about, okay, what are my fishing values now? What do I want out of going fishing? And those words of wisdom that he gave me probably 10 years ago now, 8 years ago now, finally have landed, and I know I'm going to start pretty soon.
Start fly fishing.
Yep, I'm getting into it soon.
You got to meet Tim Landwehr. So I've said it now a couple times. We're doing Ledgestone Vineyards tonight, and for the listeners out there, this is a show that's also kind of collabing with Tim Landwehr and Tight Lines Fly Fishing Company, which is based out of Penbine.
Yep.
There's a fly shop here in Green Bay, but they do a lot of guiding up there on the Menominee River. And he is an incredible, that crew is very, very good at teaching fly fishing, and they go mostly for smallmouth, so absolutely worth checking those dudes out. And tonight they're releasing Tight Lines IPA.
It's so sick, yeah.
And it's good, but boy, like my mom would say, that beer's a sipper. It's got to be 9-10% ABV. It'll light you up like a Christmas bush, man. God.
Man. So yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely gonna dive in. I can see the appeal. I understand it. There was a.
I love it, man. And it's been so good for mental health things, but also that of my friends. Just seeing people go through stuff in their life and consistently be able to retreat to the familiarity of fly fishing with friends and a buddy whose daughter got in this crazy like horse accident. He was struggling with that, and we went out and just started doing more fly fishing again whenever he could, and it helps people work through like PTSD, and it's a crazy thing, fly fishing. And I don't know, so I debate always if it's the fly fishing or if it's standing and moving water.
Yeah.
Something about standing and moving water, man. Can't grab a raging river with a clenched fist. It's kind of the same way as life,
I dig that, dude. Yeah. There is something about that, man. The last time I went fishing, I went with a friend I hadn't seen in probably 5 years. At one point in life, super good friend of mine, really close. We saw each other multiple times a week. Lives drifted apart geographically and just didn't. And I went with him, and it was funny. Obviously, an immediate like comfort zone back talking with an old buddy, but I was terrified at the beginning because we got the water was super high. We were on the Breuel up north, and I'm just getting.
You're where?
We were on the Breuel River.
The Border Breuel or the Boy
the Border
Breuel?
Breuel. Border
Okay,
Breuel.
yeah.
So we were on there, and I'm just getting into this. So like my river time is minimal, like I used to smallie fish in rivers, but in places like where dams were and stuff that I didn't have waders or anything. I was walking with like water shoes. We get to this place. It had just rained a ton, and we hop into this river. And I had always fished over by you in my river fishing. Most of it was over there, so I didn't even have studs in my boots. Like I just had the rubber bottoms.
The border brook can be a little spooky.
It's rocky, dude. So
rocky and deep. It hits these deep hallways.
So deep. Yeah. And we got in there, and the river's just ripping. I feel like I'm on ice because I can't grip anything. I don't have the spikes or the studs in my boots. And I'm like, dude, I don't think I can do it. And he's doing all this stuff like, if I stand here, maybe it'll break the current a little bit, blah, blah, blah. And it ended up being cool.
No diggers.
No, it didn't fall.
I took a real good digger.
Did you?
Oh, my God, the other day out in Wyoming. I'm still recovering from it. I kind of fell on this wrist, and I've been monitoring it because it's freaky, you know. That's my fretting hand. And, like, it doesn't seem to be aggravating while I'm playing, but like right now it hurts. Like you feel it hurts.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, you got to be careful. No doubt about that.
Man, that's a whole nother level of like, that's your livelihood right there.
I know, it spooks me out. I'm always doing cool outdoor shit. I was just backpacking too, and I always think about one tumble out there backpacking when you're kind of free climbing up a rock face or something. It's like,
yeah,
gosh, you gotta pay attention. But also it's like, sure, that's a risk, but I need to be doing that, you know. Yeah. Hopefully there's somebody sound checking now. Hopefully
yeah.
Oh, you know what? The door's open. Let me see if I can close that. Should it?
Yeah.
Do you mind if we shut the door, man? Is that okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought you were gonna have to like sprint to stage. Dude, yeah, that's there's something about mountains that calls you in too. So my cousin, I had an opportunity, he lives in Alaska now, and I had an opportunity to go hunt Kodiak Island.
Oh my gosh.
It was great. And while we were there, what made me think of that, this dude had to get airlifted.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate you. This dude had to get airlifted off the mountain, because you take float planes in.
Oh my God.
He had fallen and like hurt his shoulder or something.
Oh my goodness.
So when we flew back in, we were lucky to get off because Kodiak weather's wild anyway. Lucky to get off. We get back in and there's this dude, from what I remember, like he's in a sling waiting for his truck to come or his like ride to come. And they told us like, yeah, we had to like, they had to helicopter him off the mountain and stuff. And like, you know, you think about that. When you're going, you think about the possibility of that, but at the same time, it's like, boy, that wasn't on top of my mind. Maybe getting eaten by a grizzly bear, but not falling off the mountain.
I know, it's wild, isn't it? I mean, life's so fragile. I mean, it's like a constant thing that emerges in our lives, but you know, it's like you can't let it paralyze you either. Like, to me, the exploration, getting and doing, like, I have to go and do something that pushes my physical and mental comfort levels. I have to do that stuff. It's like without it, it's hard for me to feel like alive. You know, I got to do that like at least once a year, if not more.
That probably speaks back to that identity thing too. When you start like there's few feelings in the world that are you popping up on stage at Red Rocks to all those people, and then the next day you're like dang, I'm Adam.
Yeah.
You know?
Weird.
Yeah.
It's weird for sure. A lot of, you know, it's discussed more and more these days, this really peculiar element of like the rush of a live performance. You know, you get this big high when you're out there on stage, you know, especially for like a larger crowd. And then you get off stage and it's like, what now? You know? And I think that messes with a lot of folks. If you have to, you know, you have to find bliss in life's, you know, simpler pleasures. You know, like I found that I don't want to feel reliant on that high to be happy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the hell that is, that high. Is that like a thing where it's like, or do you feel so good from that because you're affirmed in your your action, you're affirmed in your ability or something. I don't know what that is, but there's definitely a high from performance. And at some point it became apparent to me that I didn't want that high to be like the thing that kind of drove me in life.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to only be chasing that thing. Like, I wanted to be chasing other, happiness creators, like river time and time with really close friends and like eating good food and exercising. Like, I don't know. It seems like it's like a mildly dangerous thing for a musician, that psychological element of a performance high. You hear people talking about that and getting depressed when they come off the road because they're not getting that. I don't know if that's like you're getting shots of serotonin or dopamine or whatever the hell it is. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I know what it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a conscientious decision, which I think, it's probably part of why I'm so obsessed with fly fishing, is that's a thing that's really healthy for me to do, that brings me that sense of joy, and perhaps balances the hectic nature of performances.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of ways to it. It's like, I feel like that's one of life's, like, it's one of our big tasks as human beings, sorting out the behaviors that you want to be part of,
Mm-hmm.
that keep you in a good way, for yourself and then for the people around you, That's
And then
such
having
a
the
peculiar task that we have to sort out for ourselves,
Absolutely, dude. And then having the personal discipline to make that decision constantly.
Yes.
Because not everybody does that either,
Yeah, because it's not always easy to do what's right for
No.
your well-being, as twisted as that seems. Like,
Yep.
even this morning, man, I woke up and I was like, God, maybe I'll just sit on my phone and respond to some emails and stuff. I was like, no, you're not doing that. Like, you've got the time, you've got the energy, go to the river. Like, even if the fishing's not good, you'll be happy to. Of course, that's what happened. And it was good for me, But yeah, what a thing, And then there's another side of me that's, gratitude is such an important thing. I mean, we got to be grateful for the ability to go and do things like fly fishing in a river, like having the time to go and get a run in, having the time to eat food that's good for you and, be able to make those types of choices. I mean, that's really a blessing too. And hopefully our world can slowly get into a place where that's, those things are accessible for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
It sucks that they're not accessible for some folks. It really is it's a brutal reality, and hopefully we continue to grow as a society and as a human race and
Absolutely,
sort
dude.
it all out,
Yeah, for sure. So much in there, man. The gratitude aspect, 2 of the 4 things I write every morning, I told you earlier, involve gratitude, because I think that frame of mind just puts you in a spot to then be, I don't know, satisfied is the right word, but at least
Absolutely.
content,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What an important element, man. I think about it all the time. Like, there is so damn much to be grateful for, and we speed through life, oftentimes not recognizing the blessings that are sitting there within our reach, I mean,
Yeah, dude.
we're sitting here right now, we're recording this podcast, super nice
Yeah.
barrel room, it's cool temperature,
Oh,
all
God.
these things, like there's a lot to be really, really pleased about. And certainly in Wisconsin, like, it's a really good place to live, generally speaking. People are really nice, and there's a lot of opportunities, and talk about the natural world and the majesty of the natural world here in Wisconsin. It's crazy, the amounts of cool waterfalls and all the lakes and the different topography, the driftless region in northern Wisconsin. It's a pretty special place to live. We have a lot to be grateful for as Wisconsinites.
We really do. That might be the best Rooted Wisconsin clip that we've got in 25 episodes, dude. That's like a Wisconsin commercial. I love it. But it's so true. It's so true, man. Well, I appreciate you taking some time to chat, Adam. It was
Absolutely. It's nice to chat with you, man. I love talking to people who are thoughtful, you know. They get down in there and roll around in the mud a little bit.
That's what we aim to be, man. I left the broadcasting industry a long time ago, and there's all these forces that, we hear all the stuff about what mainstream media has turned into, and there's all these forces that are like these puppeteers, man, pulling on the strings, like you could say this, blah, blah, blah.
Create tension.
Yeah. And to me, that is the exact opposite of who we are as humans. A lot of times, anybody I sit with the podcast, what drove me to want to do the podcast is when I sit one-to-one and talk with somebody, we might think about life way differently, but we sit down, we have a conversation, and we leave in a better spot than where we sat down.
Find some middle ground.
Yeah, dude.
You know what else? Whiskey really helps with that.
Nice.
I was just thinking about a buddy of mine who we've got a lot of different perspectives. He's from Nebraska, and we meet up out in Wyoming every year, and we're totally different humans, totally different life circumstances, a lot of different opinions on politics and society. But boy, you sit down over a glass of whiskey and there's nothing different about the two of you by the end of that glass.
Man, and there wasn't as much different about you at the front as you think.
Yeah,
right?
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. But news stations and stuff like that do a good job of thriving on that division, and
Yeah, dude.
you know.
Yeah. And then there's the great times when you sit down with someone like this conversation that seems like we have a lot more alignment than we do separation. And then you can get down to the depths, man, of what actually matters.
Get down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Dirt band.
What a way to wrap it up, dude. That's like full circle. We can't turn that down. Well, thanks again, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you,
Have a
brother.
killer show tonight.
It's good to meet you. Good to hang out.
Yeah, you too, man.
Look forward to more.
Hell yeah.